Hi, welcome to the tutorial that goes along with my mini album that I made with Cartabella Rustic Elegance. In this album, I used the Rustic Elegance paper pack by Cartabella, and I'm going to show you how I constructed the pages. So inside we have pocket flaps that are held down with magnets. I have two of those, one for the bride and one for the groom. Then we have our side load pockets, and we'll have pockets on the back of our envelopes. Then we have a bunch of flaps, and then we have two double pocket pages, and then we have two of the single pocket pages, and then again a flap on the back. Sorry, I'm out of camera, so I'll be referring back to this as we're making it. So for our first pages, we're going to make our pocket pages, and for our pocket pages you're going to need two 7 by 9.5. So the basic size of our album will be 9.5. The cover will be almost 10. Then you'll need two pieces that are 10.5 by 4. I cut mine about 4 7/5. So 10.5 by 4 7/5. Then you're going to need two 10.5 by 4 1/4. And we're going to put our base, which is our bottom, the pages we're going to attach everything to, and we're going to start with our flap, which is 4 1/4. And on the Cartabella paper, I do use my stylus. I still, you want to be careful that you don't go through the paper, but it just works a lot better on this heavier cardstock. And I'm just going to score on the 4 1/4 side. And my scoreboard, I really need a new one. I have a few spots that's really worn off. And this is the reason I'm having to do this a couple of times. I've got a spot there that just is chipped. So I'm going to score both of these at the 1/2 inch. If you're just working with the Cartabella paper for the first time, I think you're going to love it. So we're going to set these aside, and let's bring our 10.5 inch by our 4 7/5 inch pieces, put it on the 10.5 inch side, so the long way. We're going to score each end also at 1/2. Now this book will have 6 pages. Most of my books I only do 5, and I'm going to share that with you as to why, because a lot of people have asked me. I do a lot of craft boutiques and fairs, and I really like to have a lot of merchandise, but I make sure you can't tell whether it's 6 pages or 5 pages. But when you do 5 pages, you really can cut off some time and get a lot more albums finished. So let's go ahead now and crease our 1/2 inches here. And I like to get done at least 3 albums a week. So actually, by cutting off that last page, sometimes it really does save on time and materials. So this is what that will look like. So let's just go ahead, and we're going to get all of our creasing on all 4 pieces that we just scored. Now you can use wet adhesive, red line, score tape. Oh, you know what I did? I'm going to have to tell you, I cut these too long. Okay, our flaps, I told you wrong. The 4 1/4 should only be 9.5. Sorry, we're not scoring on the end. So let's go ahead. If you did cut these at 10.5, no harm done. Let's go ahead and cut them down to 9.5. That was simple. Just take an inch off. So anyway, back to your adhesives. Use what you like. I really don't see the sense in buying red line, score tape, glue, and ATG tape. I use score tape, period, for everything. Actually, I think it saves money when you're not running out buying tons of different supplies. So now I'm going to take my Crop-A-Dile, and you can use any corner, or you don't even have to corner yours. I wanted that rounded effect, like a file folder, sort of in a book. I'm just going to round these off, and I'm going to use my 3/8 of an inch score tape. When putting your flaps down, you may be intimidated when they're a little bit larger. I'm going to show you a really, what I think is a simple way to put them on. Because I'll be honest, when I started making mini albums, I had clamps, and I would literally clamp my pages on so that I got them straight, because I could not get them straight. So what I do is now I'm going to take my 9.5 inch piece. We're going to attach our flap, and it doesn't matter which side at this point. I'm going to remove about a quarter of that score tape or less. I just want a good point where I can stick down, line up my page, and I don't have to worry about the whole page being down, messed up, and ripped off. So that's what I do. Now, I turn it, line everything up. Once I get just that corner down, see how much easier that would be if I had to take up just a corner? Then I'm going to hold it flat with my hand, and it still gives me time to do a little adjusting. With my thumb, I'll go back over where the tape's coming off, and voila, nice and straight. So we're going to now take where we scored on each end, the 10.5 pieces. And let's go ahead and put our score tape down. Now, when making an album, I do go through probably a half a roll of 3/8, because I won't use it on everything, but I do use a roll of my 1/4 inch. When I was using my ATG gun, I always went through at least 2 of those rolls. Think of it, that's $10. Unless you bought it with a coupon. Plus Michael's would never have it, it seems like. So, score tape's not that bad, really. So let's go ahead, and once again, I'm still going to only remove a portion of the tape covering. Still going to stick that corner down, make sure everything's straight. Then I'll remove the rest. Even though this end should just fit really perfect, I am still going to just remove part. From experience, it's so much easier if you have to just, well, it's just easier than not having to throw away your whole page because you're not happy with it. So let's just go ahead and make sure it's all lined up. And this only takes a second more, really. And voila, you have a nice, perfect page. Now, on my other album, I only used the small basic grade magnets. I'm going to go ahead and use my large ones for this. The Cartabella paper is heavier, so I would definitely recommend if you have the large ones. Oops. So we're going to go ahead now. One thing you've got, that's one thing I need to show you. When you're using a magnet, you're probably thinking it's going to attach out here, but your best bet is actually to put it on this inside because you're too close to the edge. Let me show you. So just find where you want it. When you get too close to that edge, you can't really hide your magnets well. Now with these basic gray magnets, after I get the first one down, I always take that off and tape it. Love the magnet, but I'm not loving the adhesive. I know you can only do so much when working with metal. So I also add an extra piece of score tape. Then your chances of it staying down sometimes are better. Let me show you another trick. So we're going to have some issues here. I'm going to put, this is just a piece of the tape. I'm going to re-stick it. I'm going to reach up to that piece of score tape. Wow, we're not cooperating at all. Okay, that's what we're going to do then. We're just going to stick it over there and place the score tape. I don't know. I apologize with these large magnets. I don't know why the adhesive, if you're using them, is not. It's not acting nice. So that's what the first one will look like. Now, on your back side, you're going to want to do a pocket. Now, you should have plenty of these scraps left over. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take one of my pieces left over from cutting all of your others. Make sure it's 10.5. No, I mean, make sure it's 8. Sorry. Can you tell I haven't made this album in a while? Yeah, make sure it's 8. We just need the 1/2 inch on each side. And I'm going to be honest with you, there's not a size. I just used one of my scrap pieces from cutting my pages. I don't like to cut new ones for pockets. So I'm going to score my 1/2. And also you may decide you want a corner pocket. Maybe don't want just a straight pocket. If you're doing it just like the album, I did do just a straight pocket. And don't be afraid. If you don't want this album that wide, you can cut it down. Now mine, on that other album, it was just a little bit smaller. I think I took my pages down by 1.5 inches. And sometimes I'll do that to accommodate my paper. So if I want to get more out of my paper, I actually will bring my album down so that I can cut my 6x6 to 12. So I'll make my pages only 6 inches wide so I can get 2 pages out of one piece of paper. So that's one thing to consider. And that's why it's always best to watch your videos first to make sure that's the size. Let me tell you, if you want to change it, all you have to do is cut your pocket page down to 6 instead of 7, and then adjust this flap by 1 inch and adjust your cover by 1 inch. Just take 1 inch off if you want it to be smaller. That's no big deal. So we have our score tape on these 3 hinges. Now I'm bending these hinges back so the score tape is up. And when I mitered my corners, I went sort of at an angle. I rounded it there so that they more overlap instead of just meet. So I always take off my bottom first. And I stick those 2 flaps down. And I also double check before putting it down that it's going to fit the way I like it. Move our score tape. And I'm going to turn this just to make sure it's up the right way. See, I struggle with getting things straight, so I like to go slow. So what I do, while I have this up, I don't really put down, I don't stick down the bottom. I just bring it to the other side to make sure it meets exactly where I want it. Then I'll stick the bottom down. Nothing I hate worse than my pocket not sitting square on the page. So there I have my pocket. And there you'll have this page. Now this is where we're going to connect this to the hinge. So let's make our second page. So we already have our score tape on our flap. Let's go ahead and miter those corners. And then I'm going to take, get my piece of paper here. I'm going to take the next one and do the same thing with these flaps. We'll be all ready. And it's up to you. I usually don't miter these corners. You might want to at the top if you're feeling that, oh, you don't want any of that to show. Usually it won't, but you can if you want to. So once again, let's just remove our score tape. Make sure our flap comes at the top of that fold. if you're doing it this way. And then just line her up, hold it down, and let your thumb just trail behind. So nice when it's perfect and you don't have to go back and rip anything off. Take that off. There we go. Now I'm going to add my second magnet, just like I did on the first. So we may want to bring the adhesive right off with it. This time, because it is giving us such trouble, I'm going to do something a little different. Okay, we know that we want this taped part to stick. So I'm turning it over and I'm actually going to put a piece of score tape just like that, since it's giving me so much problem. Then I'm going to remove this. I'm going to attempt to move this. Now, because I have the sticky side of the score tape up, I can push it down and voila, much better. There's always one way to beat these magnets. You love them, but you hate them. So now you have 2 pocket pages. Now on the back of this, I'm also going to do my pocket, but I've shown you how to do this one. So on this album, I'm going to create a corner pocket because I do want a little different look. It doesn't matter what you use, no matter what size you want. So this is one of the 5 by 10 inch leftovers. For this, I'm going to need my smaller cutter. Okay, and I'm going to cut this down to 5 by 5. No, let's go 5 by 6. Since this is a little bit bigger album. Now, being that it's 5 by 6, what I'm going to do now with this piece, I'm going to leave it 5 by 6. Okay, now on the 6-inch side, I'm going to score it 1/2. Oops. I'm going to turn it to the 5-inch side and score. No, I have to turn it. Let me show you because there is a difference, because I don't want to turn my paper over. I want that raised area. So I'm going to bring it down and score it like it was the bottom. I hope that didn't just throw you off. It doesn't matter. It's just I prefer that raised edge to fold against. Okay, so now I'm just going to fold those, making what would look like that kind of a pocket. But now I'm going to take my cutter and I'm going to put this in so that the bottom, let me get up in here. See this bottom point? I'm going to put it right on the 2-inch mark. I hope that makes sense. So you can see it's at the 2-inch mark. I'm holding it and then I'm going to rotate it so that it's pretty even right there in that cut. So I'm going to bring my cutter. I'm just going to cut that off. And yes, I should have done that the other direction. So what I'm going to do then is just put my pocket on the opposite side. See, I actually wanted it over here, but you don't want a pocket that looks like that. It's supposed to go like this, but no damage done. I'll just put it on the other side. There's really no way. I guess I could. I just don't like that red rough edge there. But I think we'll work some of those out. That's what I don't like about these Fiskars cutters. There we go. No. Decisions, huh? Sorry to do that to you. So let's go ahead. Now, after you got your side cut, because I am turning it, I don't usually use this, but it's handy. Oh. Now I went ahead and scored my other side. I know I do things kind of backwards sometimes. Now that will need a deep one in order to hide it. I do things backwards. It's just me. And one reason I don't like to score that third side is exactly what just happened. I know me. I make mistakes. And that leaves a little room in case you do need to fix it, turn it. Now we're going to go ahead and, oops, put our score tape on all these corners. And because of the way that this will lay, okay, my pocket is now ready to go, but I'm not going to want to put this on top until I mat my page, because I am going to close my end. If you choose to leave it open, then you don't have to. I want to close it because I want to just make the little tags with ribbons, and I don't want them to fall out. So I'm going to put this on after I mat the page, and you can see why. But I like to prepare my pockets. And in this video, my goal was mainly to just show you the whole construction of how I construct an album and how I fixed the, because I make so many errors. I'm going to tell you right now, if I don't, see, my brain starts talking. If I don't make notes lightly on my pages, I will forget a magnet, or I will forget my pocket. So if it's a magnet, I'll just draw a circle. On this one, where it's a corner pocket, I just made my corner pocket. I know it goes there. And I'm just going to set it inside of this little pocket. And then my page is all together. And after I mat, I am ready to take it out. Plus, I'll be doing this side first, so I'll pull this out. Oh yeah, don't forget the corner pocket over here. If you're a mother, I think you will understand what I'm telling you, because I watch my grandchildren. And there's times I'll be making albums while they're doing crafts. And if I don't make these notes, I'll completely forget what to do. So let's go on now to our next 4 pages. So for our next 4 pages, and you're going to be able to put this book together any way you want. That was the whole idea. I'm going to show you what I'm doing, how I make the pages, and then you get to choose how it is you want to construct your book. So you're going to have these 4 base pages that you cut. The same as your pocket page. It's going to be 9.5 by, these are 7.25. And your envelopes are only 7, because these are a little bit smaller. Let me show you. I actually had cut mine. Ooh. Sorry, I'm working on a baby album also, and a piece got stuck. See how I made these shorter? Now for this album, I'd actually made them even shorter. Now, that's up to you. You can adjust your pages again, like I mentioned. So these are actually shorter than this personal preference. But I'm thinking, I really wish I had made these pockets bigger. So that's why I'm excited to redo this. But so they are smaller, just so you can see the different sizes. So you can see what's kind of behind there. The paper was so beautiful too. I wanted it to all be shown. So we've got our base page. Then you should have these 2, because they're going to be the double pocket. Set those aside, and let's go ahead and work with these first 4. Now these are the pocket we're going to make that's also going to attach to the hinge. So on these 4 pieces, we are going to just score a 1/2 inch on each end. And I really think it's time for that new scoreboard. This one's just had it. So remove a 1/2 inch. Okay, what I'm going to do, because you don't need to see, I don't want to waste all your time. Let's go ahead and do the edges. You're going to turn them over. You're going to apply score tape. I'm going to do the same, and I'll be right back. Okay, I added the score tape to the 1/2 inch on our pages, and I did 2 of them, so I'm going to do the next 2 on camera. And I really like doing these kind of pages because it does leave you a space, and you can do these actually any size on any page if you want, instead of having it flush this way and then you have to reach in to get a tag. I love leaving this little space at the top. Sometimes I'll just leave a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch on all my pages so that the tag is easily accessed. So once again, so that I get everything perfectly straight, I just remove a corner of my score tape, take one of my base pages, it doesn't matter what side at this point. We're going to lay it down, and I'm going to hold it, bring my thumb behind, and we're, uh-oh, for some reason I have a shorter one here. Okay, we're going to set that one aside. I accidentally grabbed the wrong piece of paper. So let's do it on here. It didn't go all the way across. I don't know which one I grabbed. So let's do it on this 3rd one. And I'm going to take this corner off, line it up with the corner. And remove the score tape. Okay, so, oh, if you have this buckling effect, all you have to do is take your bone folder and push it on over, and it will lay flat. So, right now, I have my 3 of these. I'm going to have to redo this one, but I'll do that off camera. I'm going to actually try and save this, and I'll be honest with you. With this Cartabella, it still will leave quite a bit of it behind, so it is strong enough, even though I've removed my score tape there. It is easier, though, to remove accidents on this Cartabella paper because it's so well made. So now I still have enough. I can still use my base. What I'll do is I'll save this. Now I'm going to use this for tags and pockets, and I'm going to make another one, and when I come back we are going to make our double pocket on 2 of these. I'm going to check my measurements, recut a piece of paper, and I'll be right back. It's time to make our double pocket. So let me see if I can bring the camera up a little bit for you. So you're going to want the 2 smaller pieces that are the 10.5 by 4.5. So we're going to score on 3 sides. I just happen to be starting on the long side. It doesn't matter. So you need 2 of the ends and 1 long side. And you're going to score at 1/2. Now you're going to take 2 of the pages that we've made. I got some, I don't know what it is with white paper. It finds all the leftover ink you have everywhere on your desk. So let's go ahead and fold up our 3 edges. We're going to make it just like we did our smaller pocket. If you're using wet glue, go ahead and cut your corners. And we're going to cut the corner at an angle.
Can I watch you?
We have a little visitor. Say hi, Bailey.
Hi, Bailey.
So we got her standing in the background. She came down to help. So let's take off our bottom tape. Oh, before we do that, go ahead and grab your pocket. Let's make sure, yeah, our length looks good. Yes. So you're going to turn your pocket this way. Oops, let's go ahead and put these down. And on this one, go ahead and cut your corners at an angle. There we go. Okay, and we're going to remove our tape. And I'm going to turn this sideways now, so I can go ahead and line up my edges. Turn it. I'm going to line up this edge, and then I'm going to push it down. Now there you will have your double pocket. Oh, we can just use this one. So you'll have a pocket right there, and then you'll have a pocket here, and the hinge will be its stopper. And now for our second pocket. So we'll repeat. Turn this over. Buried my tape for a minute. Whoops. And one more side. I like to turn it over. I can see my lines better, especially on white paper. There's some garbage here. So let me grab my second page, and I'm actually going to use this one where it picked up some of the ink I was using earlier on a different project. So my pocket will help cover that. Okay, so once again, I want my pocket to make sure it's up. I'm going to turn it so that the opening's there on my left side. Whoops. It's just easier for me to work that way. One side, and now we're going to attach the other side, and then it should just lay nice. Okay, let's gather we have our 4 pages. And then you should have 2 pocket pages. And it's not really imperative that you figure out exactly how you want them to go. Sorry, my magnets have adhered to each other. You can actually decide on that. Now, the thing with this is I usually do my decorating and then I put them on my hinge, but I also want to show you something else. If you remember, we talked about how the pocket page, my other one is a little bit smaller. Now this is the opportunity to look at it. And if you want it to be even smaller, like my other one, so it shows, I'm going to show you, but you'll have to do it before you put a pocket on the back. So if you decide you want it actually even smaller, this piece that opens to the hinge, you can actually cut that off if you have a really sharp blade. So if you wanted to make this one smaller, and I'm going to go ahead and cut mine, I'll make one larger and one smaller, and I want to show you. So I'm going to actually take about, let's see, ½ of an inch off. because I do have a huge industrial type cutter, see, I was able to cut that off, and you can actually do it with a razor blade. So now I was able to resize my pocket, and it just now comes to where the tag on the other one will stick out. So, you know, all is not lost. If you've made your album and you have not put a pocket on the back, then you can go ahead and resize it. And then see, there's the size difference. So I'm going to, in this album, have one that's smaller. And then I'll have one that is a little bit wider. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my album with that in the very front. Then I'll have just the one plain page. I'm going to put my double pocket. Then I'm going to go to my plain page, my double pocket page, and then I will have my other pocket page at the end. So that will be how mine will be put together. So you can kind of look at yours to see how you want to put it together. And what we're going to do now is we're going to make our hinges. We're going to do the hinges. And we're going to cut our hinges 12 by, now these measure 9.5, so you want to take about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch off, and I'll show you what I do. Let me grab my 12 piece of paper. So I cut it down to 9, okay, I'm terrible with measurements. I cut it off to 1/8 shorter of the 9.5. My other cutter's in 16ths. I'm not going to count it right now. I just took about 1/8 of an inch off. Now I'm going to see how well it fits. And actually, that's going to fit perfect. I can give you measurements, but I'll tell you what, we all see things and cut things different. So you kind of have to just eyeball it. To how do you like your pages to fit on your hinges? I like it to fit on there without much wiggle room, and that's the way I'm going to do it. Now I've done a couple of different things with hinges because there's been a lot of stuff out there, and I've actually tried doing my hinges with just tie back, and my pages, if that's something you want to try, I want you to try it, but my pages were so wobbly that it just didn't work. For me, I'm going to stick with the cardstock. I love how it just holds your albums. Okay, so let's grab our scoreboard. And we've got our 9.5. Well, mine's about 1, 2, 3. Well, it's not quite. It's 1/8 of an inch over 9 1/4. So figure that one out. Sorry, I just am not great. I just know where I'm cutting things. Now, this is the way I always do mine. You can start yours a different way. I don't leave flaps on the edge to bind. I like to have a nice, clean, simplified, like my hinges to sit, so I know exactly where my spine is. I don't like them to overlap my page. It gives more in here to crack. This is the way I do it. You can certainly, any way to hold your pages in will work, I promise. Even if you're going to use Stack the Deck, that's another great way. It works too. So we're going to start at our scoring. It's going to start at 1.5. I like to have that 1/4 inch. So I'm going to go 1.5 and 1 3/4. I always like to have that 1/4 inch gusset right here to start and end with, so that my page has that extra room between the back and the front cover. So now we're going to score it at 1/2 of an inch, 2 1/4, and we're going to score it 2 3/4, and we're going to score it 3. I will go a little bit slow on this, I don't want to make a mistake either. So now we're doing the process of 1/4, 1/2, 1/2, 1/4. So let's go to 3.5, 4, 4 1/4, 4 3/4, 5 1/4, 5 1/2, 6, 6 1/2, 6 3/4. Now we're going to go to 7 1/4, 7 3/4, and 8. Then we're going 8 1/2, 9, 9 1/4 is where we're going to end. So we have gusset, quarter at the front, quarter at the back. You will have extra out here, and that's okay because we're going to cut it, and I'll show you how I do that. And then you're just going to go half, half, quarter, half, half, quarter, all the way down. Okay, now on the back of my, well, let me see. I'm going to go ahead and do my folding. Let me bring you back up because now I'm going to be out a little bit because we're working with such a longer piece of paper. So now you have your score mark. What I like to do is I like to bend my 1/4 inch back and forth, and then I like to go ahead and take my, in between my 2 halves, and I just grab that in the middle, pinch it, and I start folding it. The reason I like to pre-fold before I put the tape, I want to make sure all my folds are exactly laying, you know, correct, that I didn't get a score mark off and missed it. And you know, I need to take some alcohol just a minute to my hands. I'm working with this white paper. Love white paper, but it loves to pick up everything I have on my fingers, even if I wash them over and over. So anyway, back to these. I like to pre-fold the 1/2 inchers. Now, if you've seen the videos, oh, well, no, you wouldn't see them. They're not out. But I have done some album pages totally different way to attach your hinges, your albums without a hinge. And I am loving making them, and the videos will be coming out. I do have a kit out already with a pay tutorial that is just, I'm excited over. It skips this whole step, and you're going to love it. So anyway, back to here. You'll see now you have a 1/4 inch gusset, and then you have the 2 1/2 inch valleys. What I'm using is my 3/8 of an inch score tape, and I'm just going to pick one of my 1/2 inchers, and it doesn't matter which one. You're just going to lay down your score tape. I like the 3/8 because it fits right inside perfectly. Without hanging over. I don't have to worry about it getting into my folds. Now, I want to make sure, and then let's cut anything that hangs over the edge. Check both sides. Then I'm going to take my 1/4 inch, and I'm going to place my 1/4 inch tape on all of my 1/4 inch gussets. This is just a lot easier if you put it on now than after you make your hinges trying to get tape on the back without smashing your new folded hinges. So we're just gonna go back and forth. And then once again, after that's done, I'm going to turn it over and make sure we don't have, there we go, anything stuck there. Now, I am going to go ahead, and it depends on your comfort level, but I go ahead and I take off all my 1/2 inch or 3/8 of an inch score tape. I just remove it. I do not remove this yet because we still have to make our cover and you don't want bare tape. Now, I just fold over my 1/2 inchers, fold that back. Now you'll see your tape coming together on those 1/4 inch gussets as we're working. I also get a lot of questions. Why, when I make my albums, do I not use tie back? Why do I not add tie back not only to my hinges but also to my cover itself? I don't know if you've tried to use tie back. I've used it. If you're buying tie back, it's an added expense. And I'm going to redo the video so that I can show you. When you use tie back with your paper, your hinge can tear. And that tie back's going to be there. Now, have you ever seen what tie back is? It's those really lightweight, but they do not tear easy, envelopes from the post office. They can't hold a heavy page that's embellished. If that hinge rips and tears, the tie back will be there, but really you can't fix it any better than you could if you just left it off. So for me, I'm not going to add that extra expense of buying the tie back from Office Depot or Office Max and adding it to my albums. Personal preference, again, that's totally up to you. So now I've got my hinges made. When you fold right there, you should have, you're going to have to work it if you're using this Cartabella paper. You're going to have a nice little, I call it a lip. You'll have one on each side so that when you put your page down, it will sit on there and it'll stop it from going into your cover or the back into the crease or where the albums meet. It'll stop it. So you'll have a nice flat surface. So you kind of want to get that defined. And you'll also notice this piece is going to be too long. So what I like to do, mash those hinges down. And I'm going to go ahead and just make a mental note. I need to take off all tape but this last one. So now we're going to remove all of this score tape backing. Also, if you don't have a Cricut or Silhouette or any of these tools that come with it, this little hook, wonderful. You can actually go into Walmart and in the dental section or in CVS or any drugstore, and you can get the pick they have for teeth. It works great, that little dental tool. So now you've got all the tape off, score tape off. Now what you're going to do is you're going to push it down because you want to make sure you still have that fold there, or you're going to lose that lip. Make sure you've got it. Now we're going to turn it over and we're going to mark, push it down there, where we need to cut off this back side. For this, I just take my box cutter and my ruler. I'm going to go this way because we're wanting to stick to that score tape. Try and get it straight. If it's not perfectly straight, you're great. No one's going to see it. I'm going to take that off. Now for this piece, I'm just going to add score tape directly to this piece. And I'm going to add one closer to the edge there. And we're going to remove the last piece from our 1/4 inch gusset. I don't know if you can hear that banging noise. My granddaughter's walking around on my wooden floors upstairs in high heels. You might be able to hear it. Now, when you put it down, it's, you know, mine's, you'll notice I'm never straight, but who's going to see it? That's the nice thing. Now, you want to go ahead and take whatever size score tape you're going to use. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and get my 1/2 inch out. I do use it when making my covers. I'm going to cover the whole back of my hinges. And once again, I'm going to make sure if I have any tape hanging over, I do want to remove that. And make sure everything looks straight. Now here's another part. If you want to really reinforce your hinges, this is one thing I have done, but it is an extra step. Not necessary. Most of the time it's for look. You can actually take a long brad, cut into your middle one, and add a brad that goes through your cover. So you'll want to go ahead and get that marked now, but I don't do that in my albums. That's just to let you know it's an option. Okay, now once we have our hinge over, I usually take something not sharp and I just push in on the gussets so that I can get that tape securely stuck down. Okay, there is your hinge system for six pages. Now I'm just measuring it over here, so now I know it's 2 inches. So we're going to have a 2-inch spine. So I'm going to make, and just a mental note of this, I'm going to make my hinge. I'm going to cut my chipboard for my hinges at 2 1/4. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to measure our pages. So our pages are, of course we know what they are, but 9 1/2. So I'm going to make my cover, and this is again personal preference. I'm going to make my cover on this one 10 1/4. Because when I made this one, let me show you. You can see the pages. I have about a 1/4 of an inch, but I want more because I'm going to actually be putting more embellishments. And when your pages get fatter, I just don't like them to be at the top. So we're going to do 10 1/4. And since our pages are 7, a good rule of thumb is about 7 1/2. Because then you're going to have your 2 1/2 inch spine. So you really don't need to go much bigger on your pages than 7 1/2. Totally up to you though. So for the sake of this album, we are going to make our chipboard. This is what you're going to need to cut. You need to cut 1 2 1/4 by 10 1/4. And then you need to cut, so 1 2 1/4 by 10 1/4, 2 10 1/4 by 7 1/2. So if you want to go ahead and get your chipboard cut, and you'll need 3 pieces of your cardstock 12 by 12 to match. Now you will have to have 12 by 12 cardstock for this cover in order to cover it fully. So I will go get my chipboard and I'll continue on in just a moment. Okay, I cut my larger pieces of chipboard, and I want to show you. This is the smaller piece that I cut at 2 1/4. Now this is one thing too. When you cut it a little bit bigger, then it gives you an idea to measure. So on this type of the hinge, because we don't have that 2 inches over, you can have it. You're going to want to line up the hinges we've just made to about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, and then you're going to want it to be about 1/8 of an inch from this edge. So it gives you room to now adjust. Now for the smaller pieces, I do use just my fiskars or a blade. It's still pretty hard. I use an old blade, and now I'm just going to cut off. It looks like about not quite 1/4 of an inch. So I just cut off that small amount, and now it gives me more of that custom fit of my hinge. Now, this is one reason I do not make my covers first. I sometimes will be making an album and decide I only want 5 pages. If I want only 5 pages, it makes this smaller. Or if I decide while I'm making it, I had some other ideas, I want bigger gussets, so I go 1/2 inch. Well, if you've pre-made your cover before your pages and your hinge, you're stuck. There's no adjusting it. That's why I do this. Do this piece last, my cover last, so that I have an idea in my head now what I'm going to be doing. So now you have your 2 cover pieces and your hinge. And I'm going to move things over to the side and make some room because this is going to take up some spacing here. So we need to have, let me turn that over so I don't get anything on my white. I'm going to grab 2 pieces of cardstock. Now, it's really harder to go into a bigger album. You can do a bigger album, but then you run into having to have tons of seams everywhere. So they're not my favorite. I've made some 12 by 12 albums, but you have to use double the paper on top. So in other words, you're going to use 4 pieces of 12 by 12 just to make your cover if you're going to be covering it. 10 1/4, 10 1/2 is about the limit because you need to have at least 1 inch and 1 inch at the bottom to wrap. So keep that in mind. If you're going to go bigger, I can always do a video to show you how to do the bigger covers, but let me tell you, it takes a lot of supplies. A lot. They're fun, but they're a lot of work. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a 1/2 inch piece of tape. And I'm going to go ahead. Don't worry, if you don't have the sizes I'm using, you're fine. You can even put 2 1/4 inch or extra glue. I just like to make sure when I attach these together that they're going to be stuck. And then I'm going to use a 3/8 of an inch piece on the other side. Because when they come together, you're going to see you want your tapes to overlap. And that's going to give it some extra strength. So we're going to remove that first piece and then the second piece. Now, I did say you'll need 3 12 by 12. Well, there we go. But we're not going to use the other piece yet. And it's a big chance that you may be able to use a scrap piece. And I'll show you why. Now, you want to make sure this is down. And this seam is actually going to be strategically placed on our hinge, our spine piece, so that it can be hidden easier. So that's going to be our basic starting. Now, if you are using tie-back, you can go ahead and put your cover together first. What you do is you lay your cover down on the tie-back with that, and then you would lay it down as a whole piece. That's an option. I don't. So I'm going to take my spine piece, and I am going to go ahead and cover this with tons of score tape. I'm just going to, about 3 of the 1/2 inches covers it sufficiently. Now, if you have anything sticking over the edges, it's not a big deal, really. Okay, so we have removed our score tape. Now you're going to line it up. You want to, like I said, make sure you have that. Oh, it could be 1 inch or so at the bottom. I just eyeball it. Push that down. Now for a spacer, you may have seen many things where you just take your chipboard and you want to make sure you have that double space of chipboard. I don't think it's enough for me. My papers would always crack and tear, and I found that that was part of the issue. I'm not leaving enough of a space. So I use my 1/4 inch score tape, and this is what I use to space between, and it serves as another purpose. It really helps to shape, and you'll see your you know, your spaces, when you work your pages in, it's going to catch down here, the top ones, and it just molds together better. It looks better, and I'm really happy with the way it comes out. So this is what I do. Now it looks like we are going to be lucky we don't have to use more than just our 2 pieces of 12 by 12. I'm going to go ahead and take off that first spacer. Now you can leave it on if it's easier for you to see the space. I take it off. And I'm going to use my 1/2 inch score tape. And I'm going to go all the way around. I just like the 1/2 inch on my covers. I don't like to use my 1/4 inch. It just takes too much. Now, I'm going to go across the top and the bottom, and then I'm actually going to show you this product while we're here because I've been using it. I love it. It's the Score Tape 6x6 sheets. So I'm going to take this opportunity to try it. I've been using it on some of my other covers. I haven't tried it on a bigger one, so I'm going to use it. You get 5 of these in the package. And I'm going to just lay that down. I'm going to take my score tape off of the back there, and I'm just going to lay this in the center. How easy is that? Now actually you can make 2 to 3 books with this depending on the size. So I think it's worth it just for my cover for a couple of reasons. Have you ever made a cover and you notice the top is bulging a little bit or bubbled? Because it's like wallpaper. If you don't get it all down, and when you go to fold that book up, your pages can tend to have a bubbly effect, or mine can. So now we're going to do the same thing. Oh, no, let's go ahead and lay this down. I take that back. We won't tape the other one yet. So I'm going to go ahead and take off. Sometimes this is just second nature to me. I start doing things without realizing I'm still taping. I apologize. Okay, I'm going to take off my big sheet. I think we better stick that down a little bit more. Remove that. What a nice surface of tape you get. It could be overkill, but it makes me feel better in the constructions of my album. Now, you're going to notice on this side, if you have a lot too much, it'll be too much bulk. So once again, I grab my blades and my ruler, and I'm just going to measure. If you have this one, you have a black center line, and I just go to the next orange line up. So probably don't need to do that, just to the black line. And then I'm going to just cut it down. Remove that, and then I have a nice inch there, and I will keep that. That'll make a great belly band. So let's now do the same thing over on this side, and we'll get all our tape off. Okay, now my other piece of chipboard, I'm going to do the same way. Around my perimeter. Just want to cross here to fill in where my 6x6 sheet won't fit. I'm thinking I really like these 6x6 sheets. I love the way it's got the big area, the backing. You can actually like mold it around your spine if you wanted to, and then take it off and add your paper. That's going to make it, I think, life a lot easier on some of these projects. Okay, so I removed my spacer, that 1/4 inch I was using, cover. is removed. Alright, I just like to just kind of get a feel for lining it up. Move it over top to bottom. Try and keep it straight. I have a funny feeling my fingers are going to be stuck to the back. There we go. Yeah. Okay, now we're going to go ahead again. And as you can see, you're going to have some extra space here. Oops. Hold that down tight. Cut that off. Make some room here, and it looks like everything looks good. I am going to turn this over. Make it sure everything's down. Now, if you want, you can go ahead. You don't have to do this yet. I'm just going to go ahead and do a little folding here, just so when I get ready to take my tape off, it's already relaxed a little bit for me. Okay. Now, like I said, if you don't like that much space in between yours, you can bring it in closer. It doesn't have to be, but do make sure you've left yourself a space, or your paper is going to crack and break when you turn it over. So for the outside here, I'm going to take my score tape, and I am using a 1/2 inch, but again, please use what you have. Don't feel you have to use it. But if you are looking for score tape at a wonderful price, it doesn't cost you $7, I do have it in my store under countrycraftcreations.com. So I've put the 1/2 inch all the way around. Now across the top here, I'm just going to take my 1/4 inch. That way, when this folds over, it will catch somewhat into this edge here, and it will help hold down that untaped edge. So I know you can't see, I'm doing the ends. Apologize, I think I need to have my husband build a counter that I'm only going to use for crafting that stays super clean with the camera attached, so I can just hook up my camera and then not ever have to worry about making a mess, and you guys will be able to see everything one day if life ever settles down. So now let's go ahead and make sure our score tape's down good and tight. Now you're also going to want to get rid of these bulky corners. One way you can do is I just fold it over a little bit. If you want, make a mark. I don't let it touch completely because I like to have a little more space probably than a lot of crafters. I've just had my album too many times be short, and it's kind of hard to fix. So we're going to turn it there. And once again, I'm going to cut it. So it's up to you. Most of the time I don't even fold it. I eyeball it, angle it, and cut it. Now, when you're looking at this, you don't have to worry about there being any tape right there because it's going to catch on these two intersecting pieces of tape, so don't even worry about that. Now, before I take my tape off, though, I don't like to do too much of a scoring at the top. Just a light, because you really don't want a heavy line. So I'm just going to push a little bit, and then I'm just going to work it with my hands. And then I'm going to grab the top, and I'm just going to push down on the bottom. And I'll do the same for the sides. Basically, just pushing it onto itself is usually enough to break those paper fibers and give it enough bend. So let's go ahead, take off all of our tape. Half the battle with score tape is if you just get that edge up, then you can just start pulling. It comes off so easy. No scissors. I love it. Okay, I'm going to start with my top. I'm just going to start in the middle. And we're going to bend that over. Now, I'm going to come up and I'm just going to bend this over. Should pretty much be down there. There we go. And now for my ends, okay, oh, let's go ahead and do this middle part. Push up. Now on these ends, I like to put it to the back of me, and then I just push this over. You want to make sure, that's right, that you're covering the edge of that chipboard, and this is the easiest way I have found for me to do that. And then I'm able to just mold it over that edge. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to push that over. I'm going to push this one, push that over that edge. You can work that over however is comfortable with you. Use your bone folder, push it in. That just works for me. Now you see how it overlaps? You don't have to worry about your chipboard showing, and you have a nice cover now for your album. Now, and I apologize, the lighting is just not that great down here today. It's overcast outside and it should be great, but it's not. So now we have our cover made. Now what we're going to do is we're going to cover the inside. So we know that our cover is 9 and, well, mine's about 9 and a, no, mine is 10 and a quarter. So now I'm going to cut a piece of 12 by 12 by 10 and a quarter. And you should have enough scraps that you won't have to cut another one. So let me cut this one. Again, depending on the size and how you like it to look, put it on here and see if it's where you want it. And it's not. It's a little too long, so I'm going to take another 1/8 of an inch off. And before I cut another 12 by 12 piece, I only need that much. So I'm going to make sure that maybe I don't have something already that will fit. And it doesn't look like it. So we'll cut that in a minute, but I want to stop. Because if you are wanting to cover your outside cover now with the pattern paper, and you want to wrap it, you still can. I like to always do this first. I don't like to paint my chipboard. I don't like the looks of it. Even if I wrap it with another paper, I do this. I don't really think it's necessary. It's totally up to you because you do have the nice border. Now it just looks like your pages. And then again, if you want to wrap, if you want the paper to be, you know, wrapped over your spine, so some of it shows on the front, you can do that now too. Otherwise, I just cut it to fit. See, it's in there. I just cut it to fit. And then I don't ever have to worry about it cracking because it's not on the stress points. When you start putting paper on those stress points, you start getting that cracking. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my cover piece. My tape has wanted to bulge there, so I'm just going to fix that real quick with a little bit of glue. Just where it's come together, it wants to pop. There we go. all I'm doing is putting a little glue reinforcement up here. See on that edge where we had the tape? There we go. On my finger. Okay. So we're going to take our cover piece, whatever you're using. I'm going to go ahead now and just cover, well, I'm not going to cover the whole thing, of course. I'm going to go around the 4 edges. And it is important that we run tape in the middle here. Again, if you do not have it securely down, it will bulge. You're not going to like the way it looks. I know it's a lot of score tape when putting your album together, but it is so worth it in the long run. I'm just going to remove the covering. Now let's place our cover down. Now this is where I want to show you what I meant about the score tape in between. So I'm going to take my finger and I'm just going to push down. I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to get this down a little bit more though, the score tape. Now I'm going to take the back of this tool. If you have something blunt, now you can see we are getting a really nice look and separation. It makes it look like an actual book with a little bit of dimension there. I'm going to work my cover down. I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to do the same thing. Actually, it's beautiful. It just picked it up itself. Now, do you see how we're getting that look? I like the look. I don't know about you. And it gives it a nice, let me show you. I don't know if you can see. It gives it a nice rounded edge there. So it doesn't look sharp. It doesn't look stressed. It doesn't look like it's about to break. I'm going to move my covers backwards. See, and you've got so much freedom when you leave that space there. Now look how it rounds out. Look how beautiful it does. I just love it. Sorry. It's my favorite thing about the book. So now you've got it nice and secure down. Now we have to cut this piece. We know we need a piece the length that we just did. And this always differs in size because depending on what size album you're making. I like to have about a 1/2 inch hangover, but I try to get to the nearest whole number as possible. So I'm going to cut mine at 6. So you'll measure yours. Let's get them cut. You'll need to cut your width and your length. And again, I'm going to make sure we're good there. I'm going to do the same thing. Take our tape all the way around. If you're using a wet adhesive, just be really light with it. And it doesn't matter if you're going to go the long way or the short way, just so you get it covered. Ah, whoops, don't do that. There we go. That was pure luck that came off like that without any damage. Okay, so I always make sure I'm lining up with this corner. So that I'm getting it where I want it. I can work that down. And there you have a gorgeous cover for your book. Now, we've got to do a little more work on our hinges. What we're going to do now is I'm going to take my 1/4 inch score tape and we're going to put it about 1/8 of an inch from the bottom and 1/8 of an inch from the top. So trying, you know, basically in the middle. And we're going to wrap each one of these. Now you do want to, well, it's easier, I think, if you do it before you put it down. If you forget this step, don't worry, you can always do it once you get your hinges put down on your spine. And I'm just picking up everything with the score tape, sorry. Move some things. Okay, now our hinges are all ready. I like to just push that score tape down somewhat. And if you've used a good quality paper, you should be able to do that to your hinges without any damage. Okay, open your book. Now, this is also the time if you're going to use any chunky charms and you want a hole in it, I would do it now so that you can adjust where you're going to put your hinges. And then, so as you can see, doing your hinges this way, it decreases the bulk, because when you have the piece that goes across, well, it is going to add bulk to this hinge area. So it's up to you. If you're doing it that way, that's fine too. I'm just going to look, there's no right and wrong where you want to have it. Just get kind of a feel before you take your tape off and lay it down. And make sure you center it between the front and back cover. And let's put her down. Now, like I mentioned, I do like to decorate my pages before I put them on. And there's a couple of reasons for that. I have done this. I have put my book together. I decorated it. I mean, it was all together and I start decorating it. And then guess what? I severely messed up on a page and I couldn't rip the page out. And it looked horrible. I couldn't save it. But I was stuck. So that is one reason I do not decorate my pages when they're in a book. I like to decorate them outside of the book. If I'm working on them separately and I mess one up, it's so much easier to cut a new page than it is to try and rip a page out of the book. But for this video, I'm going to put in one page to show you how I do it. But first, we're going to go on now to make the flaps. And what I'm going to do, because this is pretty much average size, these flaps, they come 4 by 6. All your cutouts are usually 4x6s or 2 by, do I have a smaller one? No. Or these, here you go, 2x3s. And so, and you can cut them down. You can't really go wrong. So what I'm going to do is we're going to have to cut, let's see, we need 1, 2, 3. I have 4 of the 4x6s. So you have plenty of leftover paper. You should have plenty. Now your 4x6 means it's 6 inches long and they're 4 inches. So I like to cut it just about 1/8 of an inch border around, but you have to have it cut a 1/2 inch. You need that 1/2 inch. But I'm going to show you something. So you're cutting it, but you're not really sure of your cutout. So we know our cutout is 6, and you need a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to actually cut this. I'm going to cut it at 7, and I'll show you. I'm going to cut it at 7. By 4 3/8. And what I want to do is grab a 4x. Let me see if I've got one right here handy. Okay, this is from a baby album I'm working on. Now, it's actually only 4x5, but I want to show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to take this. And I'm going to use this. And I'm going to go ahead and score the end at a 1/2 inch. Because I have to have that to attach to my page. Now, I'm going to attach it to the page. And I know it's going to end up being, see how much longer than my actual card possibly. But since I want to get it in my book already, I'm going to go ahead and not worry about it, because when even though it's attached to my page, let me show you. So I have it, let's say I have it attached to my page and I'm working on my book. And I put my thing down and it's too long. All I'm going to do is open this as such. I'm going to put it in my cutter and cut it off. So, you know, it's up to you. If you don't want to put them on now, you don't have to. I am going to show you how I put them on, because I can always cut it later as I'm working on my book. Not a big deal. So, and again, this is something I usually do not do until I am decorating it, but because I want to show you how I do it, I'm going to go ahead and turn. So it looks like I'm going to go ahead and put it on the back. This is one of my just single pockets. Now, whether this is going to be a top flap, so I'm only doing one. You can do a top flap, you can do a side flap. Now, you'll want to also use a magnet, so we'll put a magnet on there also. But, well, no, we won't. We'll put the magnet on just like we did on our flaps. You don't want to put it on until you make sure it's the right length, because you may have to cut it if you're doing it this way. Otherwise, make your flap, cover it, mat the back, and then put it down. But like I said, for the video, I want to show you how I do it. So I've got my 1/2 inch. We don't need that tape anymore. And my 3/8 of an inch is going to go down. We're not going to taper any of the edges. Then you want to find out exactly where you want it. In my case, I'm just going to put it in the middle of the page. Push it down, and there you have a flap. Now, if you're doing flaps and pockets, so if I was going to add a pocket down here, make sure you put your flap on first. It has to be under the pocket. Okay? So that's how that's going to go, and that will give you your flap in the middle of the page, or you can put it at the top and it'll flap. The flap will open up. So that's how those are done. Now let's go ahead and add a page to the book. I always start in the back, and I know I'd already designated one of my pockets. as the back, which is the larger one. And it's good that I'm going to show you with the pocket. So we made our hinges, as you noticed, a perfect size. They should just fit right on. You don't have to cut the corners. You don't have to, I call it dismember my hinges. You don't have to do anything. Your page should just slide right on. Perfect. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to show you, actually we'll do 2 pages. So I want to show you if you're nervous about putting your pages on. Okay, and there's really, you can't get these crooked because your hinge is a perfect size. So go ahead and lay it down. Kind of eyeball it. Now let's do what we did before. You can start at the top or the bottom. I'm just going to open my tape a little bit. Because maybe it's a new design or a new album and I'm nervous. And I'm going to slide it on there. But because I haven't taken off all the tape, I'm going to lay it down. And then I'm just going to get it to adhere right there. Now you can still kind of adjust your up and down so you can still move it. Once again, I'm going to lay it down. I'm going to hold it with this hand. I'm going to follow with my thumb. Now, because I wrapped it, I've got a little piece there that I've got to lift a little bit and let that come around to the back. I'm going to turn it over. And if that breaks off, that's okay. Sometimes it will. Sometimes it'll just come in one piece and it's so quick. And I'm just going to work it off. And now, not only is my page laying flat, look at that, even over the hinges, it's going to lay nice when I turn it towards the back. Like, look how flat that's going to lay. If you're nervous about doing your pages, that's one way to do it. If you're not, and you just know your page, you're just comfortable, just go ahead and take your tape off. So we'll do 2. Then I just reach inside there. See, we have a nice opening now. Just put it at the top. I just set it there. I don't like to get it too far on the tape till the other end's on. Get it on there. Look at it. See that you're A-okay, and then push down. And that's all there is to it. And now you can go on and add your pages. But like I said, I don't want to add them all on because I want to decorate them first. So on the also front cover now, we have a pocket. I have a pocket. And so I'm going to grab, let's see, I should have plenty of leftover paper. This one looks good. So I have to cut it a 1/2 inch. You just make sure I'm going to have the 1/2 inch on. Yep, we're good. I'm just going to cut that off. Now again, you have to go by the measurement that you made your album. And because I don't want to put this down yet, I'll tell you why. A lot of times when I get to this part of the album, I don't decorate my cover till last. I may be short paper. So I've got my pocket made. All you're going to do is score it 1/2, 1/2, and 1/2. Then I'm going to put it down. And that way, if I'm short, and I'm going to cut it, it won't be this long. It'll only be 4 inches. That way, if I'm short paper, my pocket will cover it just beautifully. And you won't have to worry about people knowing you ran out of paper, because that's what happened here. I didn't have enough paper. So the pocket, because I waited till the last, I put it on top and you didn't even notice it. Then this tag was cut from my Cricut. I just wanted a little bit more of a decorative tag. So if you have a Cricut, go ahead and cut some, or whatever machine you have, you can cut your tags. And then that is all there is to making the wedding mini album. And I hope this helps. If you have any questions, just send me a message. And thanks for not only buying the paper, but for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye.